Okay, well, maybe it is time to get started. So again, welcome everyone to Here to Stay Community Study Session number 2, rescheduled. So it's actually our 4th session. I'm Sophia Pagalatis with the City of Fresno, and I'll turn it over to Maricela, who will walk us through the logistics. And I'm also going to share my screen. Sorry about that.
No worries. So I did want to let everybody know that there are interpretation services available this evening. Once I go ahead and activate that function, you'll go ahead and select the interpretation globe that will appear at the bottom of your screen, and then select your preferred language. This evening, the options that will appear on your screen are English, Spanish, Hmong, and Punjabi. And if we could please have our Spanish interpreter unmute themselves to provide those same instructions.
Muy buenas tardes a todos y bienvenido a esta junta de aquí para quedarse, sesión número 2 reprogramada. Para poder acceder a la interpretación, si usted está por computadora, seleccionará el globo del mundo que aparece abajo de su pantalla, seleccionará español y les pedimos que también ponga en modo silencio el audio original. Si está por tableta es un poquito diferente. Seleccionará los 3 puntitos, luego seleccionará interpretación, español y un botoncito que dice done en inglés o DONE y estará listo. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. If we could also have our Hmong interpreter please unmute themselves to provide those instructions.
Nhớ trong số sẽ tao nè số linh số tụ do hai tiền nè là công bê mà nó nhận được lúc trong sĩ thả nó nè sản nó cũng xài luôn mong cho luận kỳ là hai mà nó chỉ thọ nên cả trong tờ lúc bỏ vào sau từ lúc nè không đợi một trò họ là do hai tiền có nè xài tiền mong ăn kỳ là xì mấy nè xài mong nè thiết lý cho nên một trò trong mong và cụ thiết lý xài tao luôn mong cho nên mà nó ở trong tao. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, if we could please have our Punjabi interpreter provide the same instructions.
ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਜੀ, ਸਵਾਗਤ ਹੈ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਅੱਜ ਦੀ ਮੀਟਿੰਗ ਵਿੱਚ। ਅਸੀਂ ਜ਼ੂਮ ਲਈ ਇੰਟਰਪ੍ਰੀਟੇਸ਼ਨ ਫੀਚਰ ਔਨ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ। ਅੱਜ ਦੀ ਮੀਟਿੰਗ ਇੰਟਰਪ੍ਰੀਟ ਹੋਵੇਗੀ ਇੰਗਲਿਸ਼, ਸਪੈਨਿਸ਼, ਹਮਾਂਗ ਅਤੇ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਭਾਸ਼ਾ ਵਿੱਚ। ਜੇਕਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕੰਪਿਊਟਰ ਤੇ ਹੋ ਤਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਸਕਰੀਨ ਦੇ ਨੀਚੇ ਗਲੋਬ ਦਾ ਸਾਈਨ ਦਿਖੇਗਾ। ਜੇਕਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਫੋਨ ਤੇ ਹੋ ਤਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਸਕਰੀਨ ਦੇ ਨੀਚੇ ਸੱਜੇ ਹੱਥ ਦੇ 3 ਨਿਸ਼ਾਨ ਦਿਖਾਈ ਦੇਣਗੇ। ਇਹਨਾਂ ਤੇ ਕਲਿੱਕ ਕਰੋ ਅਤੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਭਾਸ਼ਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਬੋਲਦੇ ਹੋ ਉਸ ਨੂੰ ਸਿਲੈਕਟ ਕਰੋ। ਜੇਕਰ ਕਿਸੇ ਵੀ ਕਾਰਨ ਕਰਕੇ ਓਰੀਜਨਲ ਸਪੀਕਰ ਦੀ ਆਵਾਜ਼ ਉਸ ਇੰਟਰਪ੍ਰੀਟਰ ਤੋਂ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਹੈ ਜਿਸ ਨੂੰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸੁਣ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ ਤਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਵੀ ਵਕਤ ਓਰੀਜਨਲ ਆਡੀਓ ਨੂੰ ਮਿਊਟ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ। ਸ਼ੁਕਰੀਆ ਜੀ।
Thank you. And that feature is now on. So if you could go ahead and select that globe and select your preferred language, we'd greatly appreciate it so that all participants are able to listen to and communicate with each other. And we do just have a couple more items to go over in terms of logistics. I did also want to let everybody know that tonight's meeting is being recorded and publicly broadcasted to the CMAQ government channel, as well as the City of Fresno's Facebook page and YouTube channel. And the recording will be posted to the Transform Fresno website, as well as the City of Fresno's Housing Element website. Participation in this meeting will be considered consent to be recorded. And finally, Zoom can be a little bit tricky sometimes, so we'll go over a couple of features. If you'd like to make a comment or ask a question and you'd like to provide it verbally, you can go ahead and select the raise hand button, and that's shown on the screen here. Otherwise, if you're dialing in tonight, you can go ahead and press *9 on your phone. Again, that's *9 if you're dialing in with us this evening. And with that, I'll go ahead and hand it back over to Sophia to get us started with tonight's Here to Stay community study session.
Thank you, Maricela. So tonight's meeting was a meeting that was originally scheduled for July 29th, and we had some technical difficulties, so we rescheduled it to this evening. And the topics are socially responsible development and accountability and transparency. And I think we're discussing them in the reverse order. Accountability first and socially responsible development second. I wanted to let you know who is here from the city of Fresno, and then we want to know about you. We have many staff here from the planning department who I want them to give a wave so you know you'll meet them more in the breakout sessions that we will go into later in this meeting. And let's see, we would like to know who's here from the public.
All righty.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I just wanted to say that we've been working on trying to make our polling more language accessible, and I want to say thank you to Maricela who really worked hard on that. So Maricela, take it away.
All righty. So I'll go ahead and read the question that should have just popped up on your screen. And the question is, what best describes you? And the options that should appear are resident, public agency, nonprofit agency, advocate, developer, business owner, landlord, tenant, and then other. So I see on my end, we can see the live results of the answers coming in. It looks like about 75% of folks have voted thus far. Alrighty, up to 83%. It's exciting to see it. Later on, you'll see live results. And that'll be a test to see how that functions. So I do ask for some patience in terms of technology because sometimes it just goes all wonky. Alrighty. Okay, it looks like we have a majority of folks in, so I'll go ahead and end that poll and then share the results. So it looks like the majority of folks here tonight are advocates. We also have some folks that are residents here from nonprofit agencies and a landlord. Alrighty. Thank you for participating in that poll, everybody.
Okay, so let's see, getting my PowerPoint to move. There we go. Here's our agenda for this evening. We're following the same format that we have followed for the previous 3 meetings. So we'll give you background. We want to make sure you know how to comment on the Here to Stay report. And then we focus on our policy topics tonight, which, as I mentioned, are accountability and transparency and socially responsible development. And then we will discuss these in more detail in our breakout sessions and have a report back to the group afterwards and close at 7:30. So we do have a few ground rules. Stephen, would you like to read those out for us?
Definitely. All right. So we haven't had any troubles with the meetings we've had, but we do want to go over these ground rules. We definitely want to respect the meeting and we want to respect each other. And we do that by listening to everyone, let everyone speak and have their turn to talk. We stay on topic. We're really here to learn from each other, hear each other's opinions, and we can disagree about certain items, but we don't have to be disagreeable. So yeah, we just want to come together, share, and yeah, together we could work for the good.
Thanks, Stephen. So the purpose of this meeting is to increase understanding of the policy ideas in the Here to Stay report, to identify the need for more information, and of course, to remind you all how to comment on the report. And I have more information about the comment period, which is coming right up. But first, just a little bit about background. How did we get here? Where are we going? So our interest in anti-displacement policies comes from 3 plans that were recently adopted by the city, all of which plan for investment in historically underinvested neighborhoods in the downtown. The housing element sort of has a broader focus in Southwest Fresno. And these plans call for studying of displacement and then if displacement is found to be occurring, recommendation of policies to reduce or prevent it. So we're talking about multiple kinds of displacement, but the key focus for the Here to Stay report, and I think for these plans as well, is the displacement that occurs when new investment occurs in a neighborhood, raising property values, and then existing residents get priced out due to rent increases, et cetera, or merchants, same thing. So that's the main focus of this report. The Transform Fresno program also has a requirement for oh my goodness, my mind is going blank, a displacement avoidance plan. And so this effort is also informing that. So the report, Here to Stay, was commissioned by the city in an effort to understand more about displacement and how to prevent it. It is a public draft that was released in June, and it contains 46 different policy ideas for how to reduce displacement. Those are organized into 7 different topic areas, and we've been studying 1 or 2 policy areas or topic areas in each of these meetings. So tonight, we're looking at our last 2 topic areas in the report. So I want to make sure that you all know where to find the report if you haven't obtained it already and know how to comment on it. It is here at the Transform Fresno website. So that's www.transformfresno.com/here-to-stay. The report is available in English, Spanish, and Hmong. And we encourage you to comment on the report. There's a number of ways you can do that. There is a survey that's on the website that we would love you to fill out after you've had time to consider the entire report. You could write an email to transformfresno@fresno.gov here. And we have extended the public comment period to September 10th. So you will have from 2 weeks from tomorrow to submit your comments or fill out the survey or both. Here's just a little shot of the survey. So you know that if you go to the Transform Fresno website, the survey is right there and readily available. However, if you prefer hard copies of the document or the survey, those are available at these locations. So the overall process for considering the Here to Stay report is on this slide. We're in the public comment period. After the public comment period concludes, all of the public comments will be organized, analyzed, and quantified and provided to the public and also to the Anti-Displacement Task Force. They will consider the comments and make a recommendation on the Here to Stay report and what should be the policy priorities in the report. They will make that recommendation, and that recommendation will go to the Planning Commission and then to the City Council for consideration. We hope to get all that done this fall. And then when the council takes their action, they may want to enact policies that may require some further development. So you notice in the report, the policy ideas in the report are made at a fairly high level. There would need to be details worked out. So it could be sometime after the council's initial action before policies are actually enacted. So just wanted to lay that out here on this slide. And we're ready to jump into an overview of the policies that we're going to be considering tonight. But before we do that, I just wanted to pause for questions about process or accessibility of the documents. Any questions out there, Maricela?
I'm not seeing any in the chat or any hands up, but just as a reminder, you can go ahead and hit the raise hand button. If you're dialing in, you can hit *9, or you can always put it in the chat.
Okay, well, then we will move on. And we'll talk first about the policies in the accountability and transparency section. These are mainly about making it easier to get information about projects or project impacts. So we will talk about 4 main policies, and then there are some additional recommendations as well. The first one is a mandatory impact area notification system. And pardon all the text on this slide, but I thought it was important to make the points here that are described in the policy. The goal of this would be to improve public access to development project information and facilitate communication between developer and residents. The idea here is to create a centralized development notification system to notify an impacted area or an area around a project of development projects. The policy suggests using various methods such as robocalls, mass texting, and email blasting. And most of you are probably well aware that our current practice is to send mailers to all property owners within 1,000 feet for discretionary projects. So not all projects require that, but some do. In the proposed policy, mailers would be sent to all residents directly adjacent to the project 3 times during the process. At the very beginning stages of the project, probably during the planning stages, during the comment period of the project, and then after the project is built for feedback on the project performance. So that is definitely a new aspect that's been brought forward here. And then the last recommendation that's part of this policy is that in-person contact should also be established for a given neighborhood in order to provide development information. For example, a mobile cart, like a food cart that always is in the neighborhood, or a grocery store that has a bulletin board, or other community locations. The next policy is mandatory displacement analysis in Sequa, and Sequa is the California Environmental Quality Act. The goal here is to publicly disclose the likelihood and extent of displacement caused by a development project and mitigate if necessary. So when an analysis is done under the California Environmental Quality Act, if it is a negative declaration or an environmental impact report, it is required already to discuss any displacement impacts. However, this policy is suggesting a more in-depth analysis of the displacement. It would require more rigorous analysis, including rent burden, likelihood of gentrification, and it would include not only residential displacement, but merchant displacement as well. The next recommendation kind of ties back to the first one that we talked about, an open Fresno Geo Hub with the goal of improving public access to city plans and data. This requests that full access be allowed to data and plans through a Geohub platform. And I'm happy to report that the city does already have a data hub that is available to the public. However, probably we could host a lot more data. It's just all a matter of staffing and budget. This policy also suggests a data portal for proposed development projects. So it would be easier to locate development projects in your neighborhood through this portal. And a potential discussion question for your breakout sessions might be, what data would you like to see on the Geohub? And hold on just one moment. There we go. The next policy is suggesting the creation of a new department for a temporary period of time, a new city department called the Development Evaluation and Technical Assistance Department. And the goal would be to ensure that policies and projects related to displacement are prioritized, funded, and implemented. So this department would just basically ensure that policies and projects related to displacement and greenhouse gas reduction, homelessness, and other innovative programs would be supported and funded. The department would also help troubleshoot during implementation and public engagement. And the suggestion here is that this department would last from 2022 until 2030, with the idea that after that point, the consideration of displacement would be well integrated into the other city departments, so there would be no need for a special department. Additional ideas that are mentioned in the report are an unofficial eviction tracking program, a tenant experience portal, and a meeting access portal. And you're welcome to discuss those as well. But because we have several to consider tonight, we're going to focus on the primary policies. So you notice that in the second category of socially responsible development, we have 6 policies. So, a total of 10 policies are on our plate to discuss tonight. The first one is special business certifications and inclusive procurement, with the goal of ensuring that the city procurement process is inclusive. And by city procurement, we mean when the city hires consultants or contractors. That's what this policy is aimed at. And it suggests establishing special business designations beyond the ones that we already have. So we already have a minority business enterprise certification, women business enterprise certification, and a disadvantaged business enterprise certification. But the recommendation is to expand that to include, for example, second chance businesses, which are businesses that are owned by someone who has a criminal record. And there are other classifications that perhaps qualify for certification. And the certification would mean that these groups are eligible for special technical assistance to help them qualify for the city's participation in the city's procurement process. Also, this policy recommends contracting the city's procurement process out to a third party for the next 5 years. And I believe the idea behind that recommendation is to ensure the removal of bias from the city's process. I don't know of any bias in the city's process, but I believe that is the intent of the third party. And a question here for your breakout sessions might be, what special business types should be included? Maricela, do we have a question? No? Okay, checking in. The next recommendation is a language justice clearinghouse. And here the goal is to ensure language is not a barrier in community engagement. It starts out recommending a language assessment of the language needs in Fresno, and then the creation of a group of independent contractor interpreters that would provide services at city meetings and events. They would get annual training from the city to ensure competency in the subject matter, and then there would be a system created for automatic dispatch and payment so that the city would sort of have a guaranteed pool of interpreters always at the ready and always well trained for our outreach. There's also a suggestion that this pool of trained interpreters could be expanded to the private sector so that they could have ready access to interpretation, of course, for a price. And also there was an idea that this could be a good opportunity for economic development, for more people to enter the field of language interpretation. So a potential question for your breakout sessions on this one is, how could the city improve its interpretation services? Are we missing any languages? The next policy recommendation is Fresno-specific universal design standards, with the goal of incentivizing more buildings in Fresno with improved universal design. And this policy describes 7 principles of universal design, which you can see here. And what we're talking about really is accessible design, but beyond accessible design. So many of you know about the Americans with Disabilities Act and the requirements that we abide by to ensure basic accessibility in the public right-of-way, in our streets, in our homes, and in our businesses. But this policy recommends going beyond that and to create an incentive system for the city of Fresno to use to encourage more of this type of design. Sort of while we're talking about design, the next policy relates to architecture as well. It relates to hostile architecture. And the goal here is to remove barriers to movement in and use of public space. Hostile architecture is really architecture that impedes people's movement in public space. And hostile environments often lack key amenities like trash receptacles or seating, signage, lighting, or even shade and trees. Hostile architecture also includes barriers to use of amenities or space like spikes on seating or on the tops of walls or walls. Walls can be quite a barrier. The report suggests removal of any crime prevention through environmental design guidelines from city plans. This could be just a discussion in and of itself, but your facilitators can talk more about crime prevention through environmental design if needed. CESPED is what it's known as. It is a set of planning criteria that really tries to prevent crime by natural surveillance. So eyes on the street, we often try to achieve, and in planning, we try to achieve that quite often by the use of, for example, mixed use development, having buildings oriented toward the street with windows so that people in the public right of way feel safe. They feel like they're observed. They're not in an area where no one can see them. But crime prevention through environmental design may also include other types of surveillance like security cameras and sort of harsh lighting. And so there's debate about the effectiveness of those kinds of measures. I think that's what's being sort of highlighted in this section. So we're interested to know your thoughts on that. And then the next policy encourages a one-to-one affordable unit replacement action plan with the goal of protecting the existing supply of affordable housing. So it requires that any affordable housing unit that is removed be replaced on a one-to-one basis. A metric should be established to meet and exceed the demand for affordable housing. Timelines for planning, permitting, and construction of affordable housing should be streamlined, and we're always working on that. And ensure that quality construction is used in all neighborhoods. Prohibit design exceptions in low-income neighborhoods that reduce quality. So that is about affordable unit replacement. And finally, joint development priority permitting program. The goal here is to incentivize projects that mix housing with other key amenities and align with the city's complete neighborhood concept. So the city's overall planning document, the general plan, talks about having complete streets that are usable, easily usable by all modes of transportation, and complete neighborhoods that include areas where you can live, work, and play without having to leave the neighborhood. So this joint development policy is talking about how we might incentivize developments that are a little more holistic. It's not just a housing units or just retail, it's both as part of the same development, and their interface, how they might work together and be connected. So examples include housing in a grocery store, or perhaps housing in a cultural zone or a health clinic, public space, or other quality of life amenity. And the idea here is thinking about how to incentivize joint development by providing priority processing or other types of incentives. So those are the policy ideas for discussion tonight. And I wanted to go over your breakout session goals before we break out. The goals are to increase understanding of the policy ideas, to listen and learn from each other, to identify where more information is needed. And that's really important. Just so you know, we're not going to have all the answers. We're learning about these ideas just like you are. But we want to know if there are questions so that we can go get the information. We want to hear your ideas related to the policies. And as I just mentioned, the role of facilitators is really to keep the conversation going, make sure everyone has a chance to speak, but they are not subject matter experts. So just ask questions if you need to. And these are our suggested list of questions in your breakout sessions. But if something really piques your interest, feel free to go deeper. Has anyone in the group had experience with any of the policy ideas? Share, please, your experience. What are your initial thoughts on the ideas? What questions do you have about the ideas? How could the idea be improved? What are the pros and cons? So those are what we're doing. And then just to give you a little peek at after the breakout sessions, we will want to hear from each group highlights of your conversation, any areas of agreement or disagreement, and any questions that came up. So Maricela, you want to prepare everybody for getting teleported?
Absolutely. First, I'll go ahead and ask if we have any Spanish speakers to please raise their virtual hand. Again, that's by pressing the raise hand button, or if you're dialing in, you'll hit *9. And to our facilitators, if we do not have any Spanish speakers, you'll just be placed into another breakout room. Alrighty, and now if we have any Hmong speakers, if you could do the same. Alrighty, seeing none. And finally, if we have any Punjabi speakers, go ahead and raise your hand and I'll place you into your dedicated breakout room with the interpreter. Alrighty. Thank you, everybody. Just so that everyone does know, if it's your first time going into a breakout room, you don't have to press any sort of button. Luckily, you just get placed automatically into a room, into our interpreters. You'll just go ahead and hang out in the main room in case we have anyone joining late. Okay, and with that, I'll go ahead and open all the rooms and you'll be teleported. You'll see what I mean once you're in the breakout rooms, the feeling of being teleported. Well, there we go, we're going.
Hey everyone.
Hello.
All right. So we have Dallas, we have Sam, and we have an interpreter. Oh, Sam's an interpreter. And we have CMAC TV. Okay. No, Sam Pierce. I see. Okay. Hi. So I'm Michelle Zumwalt. I'm an architect. I work in long-range planning. here at the City of Fresno. Just thought we'd start out with some introductions and then move into the subject matter. Dallas, did you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name's Dallas Blanchard, he, him pronouns. Just a local resident and community activist.
Great. And Sam, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sam, she, they pronouns, co-chair Fresno DSA and co-chair of our Housing Justice Working Group.
All right. Would either of you like to report back on what we talk about?
Not really.
Is that Sam saying no? I think we have we have another person in the group, Brandy, I think. I can't see her. Brandy, are you there? Connecting to audio.
I think our connection's been unstable.
Are you guys doing okay with your connection?
Yeah,
I see your network bandwidth is low.
I just switched to my cell phone rather than the computer because my computer had crappy service.
Okay.
And the phone gets better.
Got it. Hey, Brandy. Looks like you got brought into our group here. How you doing?
Okay, I'm in the CMAC group again. Is there any way not to be in the CMAC group? I feel very self-conscious being in the one that's on the line.
That's TV. Is that's what that is? Yeah.
Yeah, the one that was CMAC one is the one that gets broadcast, and every single week I end up in the group that is, and it makes me feel very self-conscious, and I don't like it.
That's funny. This is the first time I've had this in my group. So
Can I be put in a different group?
We have to wait for the person who sent you here to come back into our group, but I think we're okay. We got a little message from her about technical assistance. Is it everybody's doing okay with their internet and seeing each other and hearing each other? Okay. Brandy, we were just introducing ourselves. We could probably do it again real quick. I'm Michelle Zumwalt. I'm with the City of Fresno. I'm an architect. I work in long-range planning. I've been working in long-range planning for the City of Fresno for the last 12 years. And then Dallas, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself again?
Yeah, Dallas Blanchard, he, him pronoun. Just a local resident and community activist.
Okay.
Sam.
Sam, she, they pronouns, co-chair of Fresno DSA.
And Brandy, I'm just involved with community work, especially with the homeless.
Great. Well, welcome. And I was just trying to see, is there somebody that would be willing to report back at the end of the group?
I did last week, so I'd rather someone else do it.
Okay. Dallas, how do you feel about doing it?
I don't really care to.
Okay. Anybody want to take notes?
Are we going to be using the Jamboard?
Oh yeah, let me give you that. Let me give you that link right now. I'll drop it into the chat. You got that? Sam, do you feel like taking notes, or are we?
I mean, oof.
Or we all can. If you guys all, yeah.
I can do notes. Do you guys want?
You want to do notes, or you think you'll do it on the Jamboard? Because then I might use that to report back.
Yeah, I can do it on the Jamboard. How do you do this?
You
Oh, I
grab
see.
the sticky note. Actually, let me I'll put my name in here again. Michelle, go. You just pick a color of who you are. So here's me, I'm yellow right here. But you could be any color, doesn't matter. But yes, what happens is you would just move to. So right now I've got it on. Oh, let me share the screen. Can you guys see this right now? Let me share my screen. Here it is.
Dallas, are you able to get in there with a phone?
Not with the phone. I've
Yeah.
been with the phone in the past on the Jamboard.
I can do notes. So if I do the notes on here, it'll just show up on what we're seeing here.
Yeah.
Okay, I can do that.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So yeah, I guess we go ahead and start. Unless there's one you guys want to jump to, we could just go ahead and start at the beginning with the mandatory impact area notification system. That the goal of that was to improve public access to development projects, information, and facility communication between developer and residents. Create a centralized development notification system to notify impacted area development projects, and use various methods such as robocall, mass texting, and email blasting, and do that 3 times during the project, at the beginning, while it's going on, or during the comment review period, and afterwards to provide feedback. And then also to provide, information in person using something like a mobile card or grocery store, posting information to a grocery store, communication-centric location, like a church or something. So you guys have any thoughts about this one?
I like the additional ways of communicating with folks about the projects, with the robocalls, etc.
Yeah.
What was that, Dallas?
That I like the additional forms of communication that it's calling for.
Yeah.
I think I would add that with this, I think that wherever we can increase reach and communication in ways that people might more readily respond to would be great. And as well, that I would add to this, consider making the messaging accessible, so people know exactly what is going on and how to impact them in a way that is more accessible. There's posts that I've seen regarding regarding meetings and whatnot that are important, and I don't know exactly how the messaging is when it comes to projects that are going to be in the area, but I think it would be good to consider how the kind of language and imagery and messaging that would help people understand more quickly, so it gets their attention and they can recognize that this is something that's important to them, and clearly lays out what areas, using imagery, using mapping, so they can see where they are at in there, and helping this to not be abstract, but being something that is accessible.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, so it's just clear, easy to understand.
Multilingual.
Yes.
Multilingual. Okay, anything else on this one, or you guys ready to move on to the next one?
I had a question about the clear threshold for notifying residents? Like, are we talking about just like perceived like scope of impact, or like square footage of a development, or like what, I mean, right now it says that there's discretion. It looks like there's discretion for the planning directors in pretty much all cases.
No, there's for discretionary projects, they're required to send it out to within 1,000 feet.
With only within 1,000 feet of the development site.
Yeah, it's like a little less than a quarter of a mile at their perimeter, perimeter of the property.
Because there
yeah,
might be...
and we just send we use a mailer. We get all the addresses and we send out a mailer. But yeah, this is saying more. They want more. There's more. But I think Brandy was saying to extend the reach a bit, right? Didn't you say maybe farther than 1,000 feet?
I did not, but that's a great idea.
Oh, I guess I didn't understand. Oh, maybe extend the reach is like extend the ability for people to understand. I guess is what maybe you meant.
But that's a great idea.
Okay.
Well, some projects are much more impactful for the community as a whole. That, like a number of years ago, the proposed nuclear power plant in Fresno. I would hope that they would notify people more than 1,000 feet from a nuclear power plant. You know what I mean? Or some of that scope would need a little more notification.
Yeah. Good point.
Or like, a strip mine that's going to have 1,000 trucks a day coming in. 1,000 feet just doesn't cut, something like that.
Yeah, it's good. It's good, Dallas.
Yeah, I think this one also kind of like butts up against the second one about the Sequa analysis needing to talk about displacement impacts. So how is this
one
determined?
Here?
Yeah, so how is the impact of a potential project determined? Like that scope of like the perceived impacts should be the scope of notification. Does that make sense?
No, yeah, explain a little bit more, Sam.
Well, I mean, if we have an analysis of what potential impacts of a project could be, then the notification should follow from that. But it's kind of like a chicken and the egg, like cart and horse, like what comes first. But I mean, if you have a development coming in and it is assumed that it could potentially have an impact on property values or displacement pressures or whatever for X amount of, area in a community, then that should be defining who's getting notified and how and when. A part of the problem with these mailers is that mailers often are only really taken seriously by business owners and then maybe not, right? But residents are often going to throw these things out. And they're the people who are going to be on the front lines of displacement, right? So these digital forms of communication are crucial for hitting residents that might not be paying attention to the traditional modes of communication anyway.
Yeah. Digital as in a text?
Well, digital, specifically the text. I mean, I don't know where the email lists are coming from that the city would have to be reaching out to people, but we do have those text alerts from like, police departments for emergency services, whatever, like using that type of system to get this information out to people.
Yeah, that'd be interesting because I don't, I currently wouldn't know if we have that that capability. The city to get people's text, phone numbers within a certain area. We can get addresses because that's just common knowledge. But I mean, not common knowledge, but it's it's associated with the property. But somebody's phone numbers, that'd be kind of interesting. Be interesting to explore.
I mean, my business is located in a city outside of Fresno, and I don't know how this happened, but I get messages from the city all the time about anything, everything, road closures, missing person alerts, like if there's like inclement weather, like just all of that. So somehow a municipality got a list of like area codes or something and created this as a public service messaging system.
I lost my, looking at another screen, I lost my, let's see, where is this? Okay, are you guys ready to move on to the next one?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. You guys see the open Fresno Geo Hub?
Are we on the Sequa one or the Geohub?
The Geo Hub. Here we go.
I think maybe we skipped over one. The Sequa one should be second one.
Oh, I thought we were just talking about that one.
Oh.
Let's do the Sequa one here.
Sam, do you have things to, since you were discussing Sequa about this particular item?
Yeah, I put it in there. I think this is something that other states in their like environmental impact statements already and some localities already do. So it isn't like a radically new overhaul. It is something that other communities are already having to take into consideration. I'm not sure where it usually falls though. Sometimes it falls under like impacts of historical communities or like without the languages, but I was actually surprised that it's not taken already into account. And
yeah, I think it's a little more broader. I think they want a little more. I mean, it is to a certain extent, but it's not as detailed as they wanted to go deeper. The study wants to go deeper. Let's see.
Yeah, it absolutely should. I think that we need to have a more thorough Sequa report that includes human impact. I saw in with these two, saw with a county project, people bringing up issues regarding the impact on the community around them. And so there was, debate. I feel like there was debate with people whether or not certain developments might be more beneficial to those people or, whether or not there might be a negative impact on them. So having having a detailed report on the many levels, as this one's looking at of impact on the businesses, the small businesses, as well as the residents that are living in the area, is crucial to have a truly informed understanding of impact when it comes to planning commissions and other decision-making bodies.
I'm just putting a few things so I have concerns having dealt with community benefit agreements before in the past.
Yeah.
They can be great or they can be really shitty. Like the Staples agreement in LA has been an example that gets held up a lot. And there was a lot of community organizing went into that, and I believe the city signed on to be able to enforce violations, whereas the community benefits agreement around the Nets arena in Brooklyn was absolutely terrible, and the city was not a signer on it, and it was basically a private deal between a couple of nonprofits and the developer. And so those nonprofits could be bought off and being given like little piecemeal affordable housing deals here or there, or get like some funding for this and that. And the actual impact to the larger community was never really addressed through this agreement. So it's really important that the municipality is a party to any of those agreements. And if there's any breakdown between the private parties, the city can still enforce it. And it should be a requirement that they're a party to it.
Good. That's good.
Don't quote me on any of that. It's been a while, but that's like my remembering from like 10 years ago when I saw this stuff go down.
Yeah.
You put that as a sticky already, right, Sam?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I realize there's multiple people putting on here, which is awesome.
Yeah, she wrote, city needs to be a signer, a CBA. That is more enforceable. Good. Okay. You guys want to move on to the next one?
Mm-hmm.
It's the open Fresno Geo Hub platform. Just make projects, permits, things that are going on available to the public, plus other data that we might have accessible. Digital an open source Geohub digital platform. Access to plans and projects and maps and data. I guess one of the things we were wondering is what would you like to see in this data hub?
Well, first of all, I wanted to jump in and say, because I know that I've been hearing from different people who've been trying to get information, and it's very difficult. And I'm glad to hear that there is one. This is the first time we heard it. So along with, going back to the other things, making it known to the community and accessible, like with the entire City of Fresno website, should be something where it is user friendly for people to be able to know it's there, make it, and make it accessible to those beyond those who would be familiar with the language and know what to look for. So someone just mentioned about, I think that whatever was on the sticky there sounds like something to be elaborated on. And that the layout of the page itself should be clear and easy to navigate. Who did the sticky? Was that you, Sam?
So I think that first of all, just having this like multi-stepped process for property lookups is kind of difficult. So having some type of just streamlining the user interface now, so you're not having to like switch between a lot of things to like get the like parcel identifier and then look up ownership, and like also like things I've run into just when you try to actually look at the document, like pull a deed or pull a mortgage or whatever it's being posted there. It's sometimes really difficult to access, and then to print, it's like it's actually trying to charge you, when this is like something that you could go into the county clerk's office and you'd have to pay to use the printer, right? But it's supposed to be free, the information. And I don't know what's going on right now, but the information isn't free if you actually want to like download it.
Is that City of Fresno, Sam? Are you talking about City of Fresno info?
Yes. Yeah. So this is, and it's, or maybe this is county, actually. This is probably county. So that information should be made. I mean, the people who are wanting to access this want to access ownership. things that it needs to be there. We want to access ownership. We want to be able to chart transfers of ownerships, or like transfers that are happening kind of probably within a related entity, like one LLC to another, but we know that they're related parties, and having code enforcement also be readily integrated into this type of porthole, so that we can be pulling up a property and all in one place, also be searching for like code violations, things like that history. Other things, I mean, in other cities, I was able to pull up mortgages. Like, what is the registered mortgage? Anything recorded actually like publicly was there. So like, my landlord wants to do a rent increase, says he's having a hard time paying stuff. What do you know? Like, the mortgage was paid, like the mortgage is only like 1/3 of our current rent, where's the rest of the money going? Like, being able to have access to that information can be helpful for tenants or for organizing purposes. And liens, any of that, like, I mean, basically just having one-stop shopping for all of that publicly available data and having it be streamlined.
I would jump back and say, as we mentioned, the other thing that I know I don't know to what extent you can do this, but try to make as much information multilingual as possible.
Yeah. Should get our spec and roll bigger here. Yeah, multilingual.
Another thing that could be helpful would be having how the city council voted on issues and who voted yay and nay on certain projects. That way, if it's a great project, they can get pats on the back. If it's a bad one, you can hold them accountable.
It's interesting. Yeah. Cool. These are great. These are great ideas, you guys.
And then any sort of, I guess, like zoning issues too. Any sort of like historical designations, use, restrict, control, like specific things like that. I mean, I know you can pull up like the maps, right?
Yeah.
But being able to like get into a finer grain, like with even like a scroll over, like instead, I don't know, I haven't explored the city's like Geohub that much in this respect, but just seeing like zoning maps or whatever, but being able to then like zoom into a place that has particular covenants or restrictions or whatever, and be able to pull those up.
Yeah. It's good. Okay. You guys ready to move on to the next one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's 23 Development, Evaluation, and Technical Assistance Department.
So this is the one where policies and projects related to displacement are prioritized, correct?
I'm not sure that's, let me go to the slide. This one is, the goal is to ensure that policies and projects related to displacement are prioritized, funded, and implemented. So implement policies and projects related to displacement. And I think it was meant to incentivize those, set priorities for how and when they are implemented.
As other people are thinking, that I definitely see support for that. I know that, at the last city council meeting, as they were discussing the McKinley Blackstone, Soria mentioned how, the long process just for that one project. and the need for and the reality of getting affordable housing, anti-displacement, things that would be, I know on this one, it included projects that would include those that address homelessness. So the idea, especially if there is affordable housing, affordable permanent housing things, that would be very important. We know that we're behind on getting affordable housing in the city compared to other types of housing on here. So if this would be the mechanism by which that would be made more feasible, I would say that that's definitely a need in our community to ensure that this, the demand for these type of projects would be get the priority they need and be potentially streamlined or bumped up.
Yeah. Cool.
I have to say though, I'm a little skeptical of creating a time-limited standalone department to do the work that I think is the responsibility of already existing departments that should be talking to each other. I'm not saying I'm against this. I don't understand creating a whole new bureaucratic infrastructure that's time limited, as if these issues are time limited, rather than expanding a department that already exists to have an area of specialization and giving it priority. Or like, I don't really get what this is going to achieve that couldn't be achieved through overhauling existing departments.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting. I mean, that as far as, projects in the built environment, like buildings and that sort of thing, those come through the planning and development department, and they have a development review committee made up of individuals from different departments at the city. So there is something, like you're saying, Sam, that could be the place where it grows, rather than, like you said, start a whole nother department that you say is limited, has a limited time frame. Those are good points.
I mean, there are other departments I could envision that are important that should be created, maybe, that I don't really understand if this is even addressing that, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, I think some of it too, yeah, providing technical assistance. Yeah, it does kind of remind me a lot of what we do, but I guess this is meant to be focused on displacement.
Which I think it would be fantastic. Like, let's make a department specifically about equitable development and like fighting displacement that create like implements policies that are decided upon through processes like these, right? Rather than development evaluation technical assistance department like this. What is actually being said here? What is the like actual work that this department does that's like substantive in terms of like dealing with the policy issues that we're talking about?
I mean, I guess that's what you could, Sam, that's what you could do, is you could say, what would you like to see this department do? We could say, we could identify those things.
I mean, I would support more like, let's take an anti-displacement task force and make it an actual let's make it not a task force and add like a thing that's time limited, that's supposed to, kind of oversee conversations, and let's institutionalize that bit more and give it really substantive work and make it an actual department And then the other things about like technical assistance or like reviewing projects or whatever, that becomes a part of that work, not vice versa.
Yeah.
And there is in one of the other suggestions, I don't remember which ones there are, but one of the suggestions is having an anti-displacement and homelessness department. So that, I mean, that might be good to put in like what you think should go into that, and that should be, that this is not necessarily that that's what you want to focus on. So what were you guys, I've stopped for the stickies, what would you say, like if there, because that is a suggestion with the anti-displacement homelessness task force and homelessness task force department that they suggested elsewhere, what would go into that?
I guess I would say, Brandy, that and I didn't weigh that in the last session when we talked about that, I didn't weigh that recommendation highly because of the other recommendations being more important to me. But in relationship to this recommendation, yes, I would say that department is more important. If you can only do so many things here with resources, then like I would rather see something like that be institutionalized than whatever this thing is. I feel like this is just the work that certain departments should be doing, and maybe they need to be doing it more effectively. I don't know.
It almost sounds like the technical assistance is to bring all the other departments up to speed on these issues of displacement. And that's why it's time limited.
Yeah, and then they're hoping it becomes, I guess, integrated into the departments where it's just a part of what is considered versus, or part of the process versus, something they're just getting started. Or just creating, You guys ready to go on to the next one?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so the next one is, you guys want to stick with the big ones? Because we
can go quickly through these ones. These are good.
Yeah. I think all of these are important.
Yeah.
The additional
these
ones?
These are
actually really important.
Yeah.
Okay, so you like the additional ones? Okay.
We'll go quickly through these, everything.
So this one's this is Unofficial Eviction Tracking Program.
So it says in the report that there is an eviction tracking program, but there's a lot of unofficial evictions happening and those aren't being tracked. So this program is to try to track that to have more accurate information and data regarding all evictions that include unofficial ones.
So it begs the question of what an unofficial eviction is and how
outside
is
of
it
the court
measured.
system.
But is that a person voluntarily just saying, yeah, I'll leave because I don't want to be dragged to court, and I just happen to owe some back rent or whatever that I may or may not be sued over? I mean, I think like because it's important if we have a tracking system, what are the triggers of tracking? And if we think we have, which I think we do have, like a really serious problem of eviction, of people losing their housing without even going through the court system. There's all sorts of other questions that come into play there, right? Of coercion, of how did that decision come to be? What were the like extenuating circumstances? So I totally support this, but what those triggers are that get tracked, we need to be like a lot of work needs to that needs to really be fleshed out. And whatever this is needs to be a part of that city porthole that we were talking about earlier. And I know that that's like mostly spatialized data, but I think that, we can do that, right? If there's particular developments that have a high percentage of unofficial and official evictions, that's good to know. But I just this is a really interesting research question for me. Like, how are we actually tracking an unofficial eviction? How are you capturing that data? From who? Is it voluntarily being solicited by the people who are being evicted? And if not, how are we getting that information?
Yeah, I guess what it says is currently eviction tracking in Fresno relies on official data collection by the eviction courts. But it says Fresno appears to have a number of evictions take place unofficially outside of the court system. Yeah, so there's an eviction reporting portal. Oh yeah, so they're saying that we should have a portal available to the residents and the community to accurately track the rate.
So that they can voluntarily report their situation and probably remain anonymous. And then if there's like the same landlords or properties are getting like reported, that needs to trigger investigation.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
I mean, it's kind of almost the same thing as the tenant experience portal, but just like a spectrum of experiences, eviction being one of the most severe. But if you're being able to report harassment or, violations of your lease that you're not receiving, like habitability, like your repairs aren't getting done, like on that spectrum at the end is eviction, or being encouraged or, forced to move out because your needs are never going to get met and your landlord isn't upholding their end of the lease.
Yeah, so you want that to be those things to be.
Same. I think they're kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
I think they're whatever that tenant experience porthole is. I think an unofficial eviction tracking program would make sense to be combined in it if you can't officially prove that there was an eviction process. How are you tracking it? You're tracking it through subjective, like voluntarily given information. But I think the eviction should be flat, like a potential illegal, and these are illegal evictions, should be flagged in some way within that system.
Okay.
And in terms of fighting displacement, this is actually probably the most important recommendation, even though it's just kind of so specific, because it's empowering people who are on the front lines of experiencing displacement to be able to have their experiences be recorded in a public record and be of use to other people.
Are we talking about the tenant experience one now? This next
the tenant
one here?
Experience and the unofficial eviction tracking program.
Yeah, because you see these going together.
Yeah.
Yeah. See this working together. Eviction tracking program. Yeah, let me I'll put that in here.
We have some overlap. I'm in the tenant experience portal, making that note in that one as well.
Oh, okay, let me pull out then. Yeah, there you go. Perfect. Cool. Do you guys want to talk about any details with this one, or you want to move on to the meeting access portal?
I would just add. I would just add that this should trigger investigation. This needs to be monitored. This isn't just a, hey, do you like your landlord or not? Like, how cool is your teacher or whatever, rating sites or Yelp or whatever. This actually needs to be monitored for enforcement.
The tenant experience portal?
Yeah.
Yes, both of them. If they're separate, then they both need to be monitored if they're not, because what we're really looking at generally are violations of the law.
Illegal evictions.
Illegal evictions, harassment, people not receiving repairs, people, you know, like having things in their leases that shouldn't be in any lease that aren't enforceable, but can encourage someone to leave. What I'm saying is it shouldn't just be, oh, now you have, don't go rent from that guy because look, he has all these bad reviews. It shouldn't be about the market end of like consuming housing solely, right? It should be about the state's responsibility to ensure habitability and to protect people from harassment and illegal eviction. Sorry, Brandy.
Oh no, I was going a different direction, and I'm glad that you finished that you were finishing your thought on that, because that was really good. It's not going to be a Yelp review page. It's basically, it should be used actively by the city to ensure habitability in these and prevent and detect and prevent illegal evictions, is what you're saying.
Yeah. So while the empowerment factor is really important, it should, even if people aren't using it in that way, it shouldn't just be that, because as the housing market gets tighter and tighter, people are still going to have less and less options. They might walk into a situation even knowing that it's not the best situation, being forewarned through something like this, and still not having much recourse considering their options that are available. So the city, and this, once it's going into this porthole, it is known, it is on a radar. Code enforcement should be looking at this. Other enforcement agencies should be looking at this.
Good.
I would like to add that, when we're looking at the idea of tenants, we recognize the idea that tenants, there is, tenancy is not just renting, and anyone who's anywhere more than a month is officially tenant. But even with people who are there less, to extend this to entities such as shelters, transitional housing, rapid rehousing. I know that one of the biggest issues we're having with homeless advocacy is that with shelters and other things, there's no outlet for a voice for them, for a third party person. They're only relying on trying to get out to either advocates and have them speak up, which are not necessarily being dealt with in a comprehensive manner or at all, but also that, their only recourse when there's issues is to try to go to staff. But we need to have outside these areas, and that, would obviously overlap other displacement recommendations, have this be accessible to those who are in any sort of temporary housing, or including shelters, transitional, rapid, everything, anything that is where people would be considered living in a place. They should be able to have access to this, or something, or if there needs to be a different type of thing that specifically means it, something very similar to it, with all the same suggestions that Sam had, things that Sam has done. I mean, obviously the rules are, there's different things and different regulations, but it should be looked at to be able to follow, to ensure that that all rights and habitability and other issues that are required of these places are being followed through with.
In transit and more in other types of housing versus a rental situation, like in a transitional housing, that kind of a thing. Is that what you're saying, Brandy?
Yes. So like, the motels, the shelters, even things like, transitional housing units, like, only one I can think of, but it's county as Crossroads or something like that. But anything that where people are living in there should be included. We should have something like this, not just for renters, but also for people in any sort of housing situation. Whether or not this is the same thing or this would need to be a separate thing.
That's good. That's good, Brandy. Cool. All right, are you ready to move on to the next one?
Randy, are you able to put that as a sticky in there?
Yeah, put that in there.
On it, go ahead and jump to the next one, and I'm still typing.
Okay. Meeting access portal. So it says that the city of Fresno should consider using the same link or landing page for all official meetings. The page should also include all agendas, meeting minutes, and important info, and the translated material should be shown on the same page in an equitable way.
Absolutely. I'm trying to, a lot of my work with people are trying to, trying to, I mean, I have people constantly ask me, like last week, where on earth do I find the city council meeting link? You know, where do I find this? Where do I find that? And some of the frustrations I find is not, you know, I know where to find it, and there's steps for people to get to it. So it's not very easy to, I mean, it's easy once you know, but it's not super easy. There's a number of steps to get to the meetings, and you can search city council meetings, it'll get you there. But there's a lot of different groups like commissions, even this, that aren't on that same page. So there'll be things like, there's a number of commissions that are on there, like the one with disability, the planning commission, the bicycle, a number of ones are on there, but there's other commissions and city-led or sponsored meetings that the community needs to know about that aren't on there, and some of them are a challenge to find. So this is access is a huge issue with people knowing about people being able to access meetings, and getting them all in the same place in a way that is easy to navigate would be extremely important, including making it really easy to navigate. There's things where I think that there is some stuff that is in the new city council one that is helpful, like an area where you can be able to comment, but it might not, there might even be some accessibility issues as far as people understanding exactly what the little buttons mean that are in places, but might be, you know, we have to make sure that that it's accessible as possible, and that people also know where do you find like the old meetings for this particular commission, how you were on agenda, how you do this in a way that, you know, there's times where people asked about an agenda item that I know from another city council meeting, and, you know, just making things easier, even maybe seeing if there is a way to be able to have, you know, keywords in the agenda thing so people can find old information from city council meetings or other government meetings would make it a lot easier for, that's a lot of the things I've been hearing with people who have been wanting to engage in or participate or speak up at certain meetings.
How would the keywords work? Like like when you go to search for it and you know, be able to search for it?
Yeah, be able to search inside the documents. And I think it would depend on, I'm not exactly sure how plausible that is. I know that, you know, in other platforms, you know, depending on the type of document, I know that we have various forms. We have the downloadable HTML, and we have, I think PDF or something like that. So I'm not sure if there is a way to be able to have that on there where keywords would be able to be searched. But there is obviously on the pages, you know, connected documentation that should be able to be accessed, including the staff reports, which could have the keywords that pertain to those specific things. So there is the wording in there so that it's not dependent just on that particular agenda document, but potentially could be in other places. I mean, that are actually in actual documents that are somewhere in the database, but it's not necessarily easily accessible.
Yeah, okay.
Although the Geohub thing might take care of that, so that may not be necessary.
That might be the better place. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe that should be combined with, you know, the other one, all the other things. So, but I'm going to stop talking so I can type and let other people talk.
Okay. You guys want to move on to the next one? I'm not sure how much time we have. I can't remember sort of the.
It's till 7:10. What did anyone else have anything to add to that one?
No. We have till 7:10 to be in breakouts.
Yeah,
I think so.
We only have about 6 minutes left.
All right.
You want me to? Let me show you the options for the next ones. So, can you guys see this? So which one do you guys want to? Do you want to jump to one of these? Special business certification and inclusive procurement process, language justice clearinghouse, universal design standards, hostile architecture, one-to-one affordable units, joint development, public health. Which one? What do you guys? Do you want to jump or just go to the next one?
So I mean, I don't know. I'm just starting to plug things in to get them in there.
Yeah, go. Oh, you mean plug in notes? Is that what you're doing, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you doing it? Are you doing?
Okay, I'm done. So maybe recap on those ones. Okay, here we're on that page with the ones we can go over. I'd like to see what Sam and Dallas, what you guys want to cover. Oh, you're putting notes in some of those.
Yeah, no, I'm just like putting stuff in here for the ones we haven't gotten to.
Okay.
Yeah, I see. Yes, get rid of this. The hostile architecture. I see that one.
Yeah, and I mean, I would jump in. Maybe we can just discuss these as they pop up, so we have time. Or fixate. Hostile architecture. Absolutely. I think there's been issues like a kind of going around in circles as far as when they mention like the trash cans. You know, people blame those who are unhoused for trash, but there is no trash cans. I would say that, you know, not including things like water fountains, which I think used to be there, and other things. We need to be mindful of things that help people survive that should not be excluded. There's definitely that we mentioned the question on there about the being able to have the crime prevention thing, and I'm kind of curious what you guys think, because they mentioned about the idea of the DPED or something like that, being able to prevent crime, and I have mixed. I'm still processing that one. I know that, you know, for those who are vulnerable outside, being able to have some sort of, you know, surveillance, whether or not it's street surveillance or something like that, might be helpful for them, but obviously would not want something that would either put in architecture that would prevent people from being there, or something that might be harmful to them.
So I see two things going on here. First is the just kind of surveillance infrastructure of like having the actual apparatuses of surveillance. And the second is trying to design spaces that control how people use those spaces, specifically to make these environments hostile to people who have less options to get their needs met. So when we talk about crime prevention, what are we saying by crime, right? Is just like loitering being considered a crime, and who is considered to be a loiterer and who isn't. And the whole idea originally coming from like Jane Jacobs, like Eyes on the Street, like I think Sophia might have even referenced that in the beginning. Yeah. This is a really gross, like, I hate the word bastardization, but like that adulteration of that principle. What she meant was you create spaces that people use in a communal fashion 24/7. So you always have a community that is monitoring the space, that is then self-regulating, like antisocial behavior out, right? It's not just making a space feel really shitty for someone who needs a place to sit down and can't find it, right? And
yeah,
I actually.
Are you meaning that one, Sarah? Are you meaning that one for SEPTED or for just in general the hostile architecture?
It's hostile architecture, and okay. So I'm saying planning needs to, like, we need to incentivize creating spaces that encourage mixed use, that encourage like uses that go into the after hours that aren't like antisocial, and create like spaces where people feel safe, like that they always have a way out, like places to get out. Like there's other ways of approaching this than just creating a hostile, over-surveyed space. And that's the original intention of that whole school of thought. And I actually think that increasingly now we should be fining business owners that are installing the architecture that is unusable or is hostile. That should be actually something you get fined for. You know, if you don't want someone sitting somewhere, like I saw this the other day, someone made homemade spikes because they couldn't put the metal in, and it was on a planter. And I'm like, just put some damn plants in there, you know, and water them, and no one will sit there, but they'll have a plant to look at, right? Like, there's ways around this to not be communicating hostility to people that are having a harder time getting their needs met, that have to spend more time in public space, than like blatantly saying nobody uses this because we don't want you.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
I don't know. Sorry, that was a lot of talking. I don't know.
That's good.
I'll probably say yeah. Okay. What Sam's. I'll go yeah. What Sam said. Sam, what'd you say? That's what I'll say. And when I summarize, I'm like yeah, and then what Sam said. So this looks like.
You have less than 2 minutes if there's anyone that we want to jump in, or if we just all want to have at it with and put our own stickies on.
Notes at this
point.
Okay, just type in notes at this point.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we can talk while we're doing it. Does anybody have any other ones of these that stuck out at them? Because I'm kind of curious. I mean, they all seem like there's a lot of things. I like the idea of having a higher standard in general. Regarding special businesses, one of the things that were mentioned, because they mentioned what things are not in there, and I don't know what's on there, but I know even, let's see, I think Harbasi mentioned something about, you know, focusing on supporting LGBTQ businesses. So I don't know if that's included as a designation, a special designation that could be considered. And where they were at.
I think they did have it in the report, but also, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like historically identified LGBTQ neighborhoods, like the Tower, like, yeah, like, and having expanded, yeah. Like when you hit multiple markers, right? Like female, BIPOC, queer, you know, like having like a tiering system for consideration.
Yeah. Also, since we're going to cut out the whole language clearinghouse, absolutely. I think we really need to work to make sure that in everything we have enough that anyone can be able to speak. We need to work on making sure that.
There you go.
I see. There we are. Okay.
We're back to you.
We're back. All right. Welcome back, everybody. So we would love to hear a little report about what was talked about in your groups. Just the highlights, any areas of agreement or disagreement, and any questions. So who wants to start? I think maybe we had groups D, E, and F tonight. Is that right, Maricela?
That should be correct. No, C, D, and E. C, D, and E. There we go.
Okay. Well, let's start with Group C.
I think it's going to be our group. We had a really great group, and we really dive deep into some great ideas. For the first one, for the mandatory impact area notification, we really felt that noticing was important, and we wanted to have the city put more effort into how we notice. We wanted to expand past the 1,000-foot noticing that we do currently. We wanted to notify tenants as well as owners, and we wanted our noticing to be really easier to read. For the Sequa policy, we liked the displacement analysis, but we didn't think that Sequa was the best fit for this. Plus, there's a lot of projects that don't go through Sequa. For the Geohub one,
We really wanted to see who owns the properties within their neighborhoods. We wanted to see current developments that were occurring. We wanted to track the status of projects, so where they are in the process. And we wanted to see open code cases in our Geohub. For our next policy, it was the 2030 Development Evaluation Technical Assistance. We were kind of unclear on that policy. We really wanted some more detail on it. As it kind of was described, we didn't feel like it truly sounded like an implementation policy for displacement. The next one was, what was our next policy? Hold on. It was a additional recommendation. So unofficial tracking for evictions, we really didn't see that as that beneficial. We figured tenants would actually report this on their own. We felt we would better pursue actually giving tenants different resources. Our next one was the tenant experience one, and we really wanted to see data in a way that is truly beneficial. We wanted to see kind of broken down by different complexes, by property owners. We wanted to start seeing repeat occurrences and offenders. So we really thought that was a good idea, and especially in a format that would be beneficial. It would also give advocates and legal services access to view this so they can see. Our next one was small business certifications, and we kind of wanted to add two important designations to the group. We were going to represent Fresno, of course, and do our Fresno locally owned business designations and our small businesses. So both of those. We were really in favor of providing those businesses with some technical assistance to help them get city contracts. And we were also looking at doing reparations for red line communities in this category as well. What's our next category? Universal design standards. We were all in favor of this one. We said it really should be applicable to places that don't currently have the best infrastructure, not just new developing areas. The next one was the one-to-one affordability replacement. What is it? One-to-one affordability unit replacement. And we said absolutely at a bare minimum, we need to replace our units at a one-to-one rate. We wanted some incentives possibly to go beyond that one-to-one replacement. And we wanted that affordable housing to be spread out throughout the city, spread across the city. Our very last policy that we looked at and touched on was the Joint Development Priority Program. And we really felt that mixed incomes should be prioritized in that one. And we also wanted to say, what was it? We kind of want to provide, or we wanted to prioritize providing what is needed by our community rather than solely, giving benefits to quote unquote mixed use. So is it actually providing something that would be beneficial to our community? Did I miss anything?
That was a really good recap. There was a lot of ideas brought up, so that was really good. Thanks, Lachey.
Absolutely. Which group's next?
Let's go with Group D.
I was going to say, maybe we should go with the facilitators' names because we did get a little mixed up with the letters. I know that there was a lot of movement. So yes. Sean, I believe, is up next, his group.
Yeah, we had a good we had a couple we had two community members and a bunch of staff in there, but we still had some really good input. So Matthew was kind enough to volunteer to take notes as well as give feedback to the group. So take it away, Matthew.
Okay. Oh, pardon me if you can hear the dogs barking in the background. So we started out with the mandatory impact area notification system. We were all kind of commenting that there was like a bit of it was kind of meta since like we kind of noted that a lot of community members were attending this meeting, and that possibly the system wasn't working well to inform people. So, I mean, Kimberly reiterated that mailing is the best way to do things, generally speaking, and that overall, yeah, support the policy. Mandatory inclusion of displacement analysis and all Sequa analyses. It would be good to focus on it, but we kind of thought that maybe it would be good to have more information on what other agencies have implemented this already, as well as like trying to attach fines to any potential agreements that would be made with the developers if they don't follow through. As for the Open Fresno Geo Hub platform, some people were saying that the current Geohub is a bit confusing. I agree, although it does have some good information. We thought that it would be good to have more info on there, including banks and other information. For the 2030 Development, Evaluation, and Technical Assistance Department, it'd be good to have that department in place for oversight and making sure that it is properly funded, especially since a lot of city departments aren't in that position. Unofficial Eviction Tracking program. It'd be good to. We thought it would be good to highlight which landlords might have been evicting more people than the rest, as a good way to catch those bad apples. As for the tenant experience portal, good for tracking slumlords. Tenants aren't sure often what their rights are and or who they would report to. So putting someplace on there where they could follow through with code enforcement would be nice. The meeting access portal, a proper calendar that lists meetings and not just council and planning commission related meetings would be good, because there's plenty of meetings out there. We all agreed that are not that aren't Brown Act that don't have to follow the Brown Act are happening that we need to hear more about and have a one-stop shop for all those. Under the socially responsible development practices, we had a lot of agreement here. For special business certification, inclusive procurement and RFP process. For those of us who didn't know what RFP was, we learned what that was. We thought that maybe it'd be good to have the RFP program updated every 3 years to add people to the list, since apparently like people are known to like have been on the list but then taken off and then they don't know how to get back on it again. And just also be good to expose more people to the RFP process, so we would know what other eligible groups are out there that don't know that this is available. Language Justice Clearinghouse. Again, we thought it would be great to know exactly how many people speak all these different languages we have in Fresno, and or what languages out there that we don't know residents speak here. There was some agreement that we would want to see ASL in all future meetings. For universal design standards, some of us had some experience like already with like walking on narrow sidewalks in Fresno and around schools where like they're not very wide and you've got utility poles sticking right out of the middle of it. Something needs to be addressed. For 101 affordable unit replacement action plan, we were all pretty much heck yes for that. For joint development priority permitting program, we thought that it'd be good to reward good work and partnerships, and Carla thought that complete streets should be a preferred thing to go for, especially around schools. For the hostile architecture eradication ordinance, Carla and everyone else, and Kimberly, yeah, we all agreed on this. This should be in there. Public health impact reports. Southwest Fresno 93706 is the third worst zip code for air pollution in California, and it needs this. All caps. I think that was everything.
Wow, that's some complete reporting. Thank you. Let's see. So who's next? I think we have one group left, perhaps.
Yeah, that would be us. So we had a pretty lively group, pretty awesome group, and took a lot of notes here. So for the first one, for mandatory impacts, there was a lot of support for that, and like that there would be 3 notifications, but felt like one of the most that felt like texting would actually be get a hold of people better than actually the mailers. It felt like residents really don't read the mailers, and so better to find a way to text them and ensure that the messaging is multilingual and that it's accessible, easy to understand. Maps are easy to understand, and that the distance of notification should be based on sort of the impact. So someone noted, that there could be. I mean, at one point, I guess there was this proposal for a nuclear power plant in Fresno, and so that it seems that the distance for notifying people should be bigger than 1,000 feet, and the same to like a mining sort of project. So they felt like distance should be related to the impact, and then extend it to neighborhoods that you believe will be potentially impacted. So I think it's more of a neighborhood sort of the geography of a neighborhood versus sort of a distance, And then they felt that this is very similar to the Sequa, the next one. So I'll go on to that one. Believe this one is important. Other states and municipalities require these types of analysis. Displacement analysis is part of their Sequa. Just feel like a deeper dive is displacement concerns need to be investigated, and sort of mixed feelings on the community benefit agreement, but supported if municipalities are involved in enforcing it. And let's see. The next one, the Geohub, a lot of support for that and kind of ideas about what should be in that. And, they want, there's a desire for ownership, transfer of ownership, entities, especially if it's transfer of ownership from one entity to another, code enforcement information, code violations, mortgages, just kind of all those, a lot of good details on properties, on liens. Even, then got into sort of the idea that maybe it'd be nice to know how city council members are voting, so be able on projects, and again, wanting this to be as multilingual as possible. I should set up a one-stop info hub, and be able to access it, make it easy to access. So streamline the user interface, because currently, I guess they're finding that getting the information is difficult on our website. Be able to scroll over to maps and data more interactive, and ensure that the community knows it's there. Make it easy to find and discover, and make it user-friendly for non-professionals. And for the 2030 Development Evaluation Technical Assistance Department, and I think there's this idea that, why create another department? That maybe there's some things that we've already been talking about that, make use of, I forget the other department we talked about earlier, but we've already talked about a different idea of different departments, or even taking the Anti-Displacement Task Force and allowing them to expand into a department, and so to institutionalize what's already happening with the task force in a department, and include this and that. So yeah, so let's see. And then for unofficial eviction, so we actually, our group really wanted to go into the additional recommendations and felt those were really important. And so the unofficial eviction tracking program is, well, one is wanted to know what is that, you know, what would be considered unofficial evictions, and what are the triggers for tracking it, and is it voluntary, and if we have a problem with, I guess we have a problem with people losing their housing without the court system, are those kinds of triggers that would be needed. And then I felt that this would be good to connect to the Geohub portal and make this available to the public, and flag illegal evictions, and then, you know, be able to and monitor, have code enforcement monitor this, and see, have, you know, be able to extend this into landlords being investigated, and in connection to this, to the tenant portal, the next one that we're going to look at, where unmet needs, let's see, in connection to the tenant portal, to see where unmet needs leads to evictions, with evictions from tenant portal. Let's see, next. So it's probably the most important one, in conjunction with unofficial tracking, for people to be empowered to share their experiences for others. And I know there was a desire to extend this to not just renters, but to those that are in transitional housing, and you know, not just those that are paying for housing, but those that are you know, in shelters or temporary housing, transitional housing. So, and let's see. And then for the meeting access portal, yeah, they all supported that. Didn't want it to be like a Yelp site, though. They wanted it to be, you know, something that was, you know, really useful in, you know, see also directions on how to participate, and once you know how to leave comments, for example, and research timelines on legislation and commissioner work. And currently not all city-sponsored meetings are on the same page, so it would need to be accessible. And let's see, you know, we spent a lot of time in that area, and just kind of quickly in the last minutes got to the last part, and you know, people definitely supported the procurement process, and there's talk about expanding the definition to LGBTQ designations, and multiple markers, and Language Justice Clearinghouse supported that, and universal design should include redeveloping areas. So I think that's, and then a one-to-one affordable unit, prioritize existing residents for replacement units, and I like the idea of going back 5 years to ensure there's no loopholes. So that's kind of it. Is there, do you guys, anything else you guys wanted to add from our group? Oh, I would say, oh, go ahead. I was gonna say that in the hostile architecture, I think that the idea was they really wanted, you know, the best way is to make spaces usable 24/7 and friendly, and that would discourage any, you know, crime, rather than making spaces unusable and unfriendly.
Thanks, Michelle. Wow, those are some amazing report backs. So now we wanted to do just a quick poll to see where, just given tonight's discussions, which policies would you prioritize? And we have a kind of a different format to try and make that more language accessible. So Marisela, why don't you take it away?
Yes, alrighty. So if anyone has a phone with a camera, you may want to go ahead and pull that out to scan a QR code. Otherwise, you can also go ahead and go to www.mentee.com and then input the code. Do you see the QR code? I've got a lot of screens in front of me. Okay, good. I'm glad the right screen was shared. So you can go ahead and scan the QR code. And then you can input the code if you're doing www.mentee.com, and then the code is 4142-7761. So I'll give folks just a minute to pull out their phones. I know sometimes it's hidden away, maybe in the corner of the couch. You never know. And then here's the poll. So as folks vote, you can select up to 3 of the policy recommendations for the socially responsible development practices. You'll go ahead and hit submit, and then theoretically you will be able to see the results live. So as folks go ahead and send their options, it should show up. I actually think that the first one is back one slide. There we go. I realized I jumped the gun. Okay, accountability and transparency. I must have double clicked. Alrighty, so we're seeing it move. It works. That's good. That's good to know. That was user error. Alrighty. And then we'll let folks finish up, and then we can move on to the second question. Look at it move. Isn't that fun?
Oh my gosh, that's wild.
Alrighty. So as of right now, before it moves again, it looks like 25% of folks are saying tenant experience portal. Now it's up to 27, as well as open Fresno Geo Hub platform. Let's see, after that, 14% for meeting access portal and the mandatory impact area notification systems. And now we'll go ahead and go on to the next question if folks want to go ahead and select up to 3. See, we have 1 vote, so it's evenly split.
That's interesting. And just so you know how we would use this information. I mean, this is not, we would not quote these results as being statistically, valid or anything. What we encourage you to do is go to the Transform Fresno website and take the survey of all of the policies, because then you can look at all of them, all 46 at once, and indicate your preference. But we still, it still does help us just to know kind of what policies seem to rise to the top at each meeting. So we wanted to ask anyway.
Thanks, Sophia. All right, if you're still seeing my screen, which hopefully you are, and I haven't clicked any red button that I'm not supposed to, it appears as though 35% of folks that attended this evening are saying 1-to-1 affordable unit replacement action plan, and then it's split. There's a lot of different opinions regarding the rest. And I think that was all the votes that we had gotten on the first question. So with that, thank you everyone. See, I knew I'd hit a red button. Thank you everybody for participating in the poll, and I'll go ahead and hand it back over to Sophia.
I muted myself because there's a train going by. Thanks, Marisela, and thank you all for participating. We learn new tools every time. We want to thank you for your participation. If you have questions, you can always get in touch with me, or the documents and the surveys and the recordings of these meetings are all on the Transform Fresno website. I skipped over a slide. I did want to let everyone know about the city's emergency rental assistance program. It is available to help provide resources for rent, and the telephone number and the webpage are here. So with that, that concludes our meeting. I again want to remind you the public comment period ends on September 10th. So please give us your comments. We hope for a survey from each of you. If you want to make additional comments, please do so. And we thank you again for your participation. Any last minute questions?
Great job.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Bye.
Good to see you all.
Thanks, everyone.